Athlon Sports has their preseason rankings out and how many SEC teams made the cut. Also, Peter Burns of the SEC Network stops by. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listener. Ever get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, and get $20 off your first purchase. All right, excited to have Peter Burns of the SEC Network stopping by. We'll talk some off-season topics with him. He was down in Omaha, got to see LSU win the championship, and SEC 6th straight out there in college baseball, and plenty of other stuff we'll talk to with Peter. We're just a couple weeks away from SEC Media Day, so that's coming your way in the next segment. But first. Thought we would start with Athlon Sports. Like, this is ranking season. Everybody started to put out their preseason rankings for next year and all that kind of stuff. So figured we would start with Athlon here today and taking a look at it. Athlon Sports, their preseason rankings, and we'll kind of go in reverse order here. They've got Boise State number 25, SMU number 24, two playoff teams from a year ago, obviously losing a ton on both those rosters, so they fall down. Iowa State comes in at number 3, a team that's kind of always, Matt Campbell's always kind of got them preseason top 25. Texas Tech, a team that's kind of been on the rise. They've had some nice recruiting classes over there, Joey McGuire, and they were really good in the transfer portal this offseason as well. So 22 for Texas Tech. Coming in number 21 is the first SEC team to appear on this list. 21, it is Tennessee. And of course, the big, almost anomaly that is Tennessee this year. We know Josh Heupel. Track record speaks for itself. He's been an awesome coach since he's gotten there in Knoxville. But what does the quarterback position look like with the departure? Joey Aguilar comes in, the former App State starter who was going to, presumably be the starter at UCLA. They basically did a flipperoo. Nico goes over to UCLA. Joey Aguilar comes over to Tennessee. How good can he be? Again, I've said it all offseason. Track record speaks for itself for Josh Heupel. He's been a really good quarterback coach. Can he get the most out of Joey McGuire? Really, to me, the question is, can they find a run game that could be as dominant as it was last year? Dylan Sampson was awesome last year. Can Tennessee find, it feels like it's going to be running back by committee maybe a little bit more this year, but can they find a bell cow back, or is it just the group as a whole? Heupel, as good as the quarterbacks have been, the run game has been just as good since he's been there in Tennessee. So they're going to have balance. But I think that's why there's some trepidation on pinning Tennessee as a top 20 team right now, putting them at 21. Coming number 20, it's Oklahoma, another team that at times last year looked good and at times looked not so good. I mean, that first SEC home game against Tennessee, they were in it and, kind of got away from them. Defense played lights out. But, and then they go get the big home win against Alabama late in the season. But obviously offense inconsistencies. That's why they bring in Ben Arbuckle, the OC from Washington State, bringing in John Mateer, the quarterback from Washington State. I think that's the big thing when you talk about Oklahoma is, what is John Mateer in the SEC? We know John Mateer out there on the West Coast was awesome. You bring him in the SEC. Does he set the world on fire? Or is it, this is a different league. This doesn't look as good. That will be the big question for Oklahoma. But I'm fine with Oklahoma at 20. Coming in number 19, Texas A&M. This might be a little bit low because a lot of people seem to be a little bit more high on Texas A&M and a lot of the other rankings. So Athlon Sports putting Texas A&M at number 19. Mike Elko obviously doing a great job on the recruiting trail. They did a good job in the transfer portal, loading up on some new pieces. But got to rebuild that defensive line a little bit. The offensive line is, to me, the biggest question on if they're good, if they're awesome, this team is going to be awesome. Marcel Reed, give him time to throw to those new weapons that he's got down the field. The backfield, I keep saying, is one of my favorites in not just the SEC, but in the country. Reuben Owens and Le'Veon Moss back and Amari Daniels. I think that is a dangerous backfield for A&M. So, yeah, a little bit low here for A&M, but in my opinion, but they've got him at 19. Coming number 18 is Ole Miss. And the war of attrition. This is going to be the big Interesting question for Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. Lane's done an awesome job there since he's gotten to Oxford. But this is as big of a roster turnover as he's had since he's been there. New quarterback with Austin Simmons taking over. A lot of people very high on him, expected, that he's going to be the next great quarterback from Matt Corral to Jackson Dart to now Austin Simmons. How quickly does he hit the ground running? And again, for me, Ole Miss, where's that run game? That's what killed them last year to me. The reason they had 3 losses and missed the playoff last year, inconsistent run game to complement the passing game and the great defense. So to me, Ole Miss at 18, it's probably a good spot for them. The Athlon Sports rankings. Coming in number 17, it's Illinois. Coming in number 16, it's Indiana. Coming in number 15, Michigan. 14, Arizona State. Sam Levitt's back there. They do lose Scatabo. Coming in at 13 is Kansas State. Avery Johnson back there. Coming in at number 12. And it's funny. We said A&M might be a little low at 19. I've talked to some people who think South Carolina is a little high at 12. But you look at how they finished last season. I know, they lose the bowl game in Illinois. I get it. It leaves a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth. If they'd won that, man, you'd be talking about, 4 or 5 straight wins and feeling pretty darn strong about South Carolina. But Lenore Sellers back at quarterback. He developed and came on as the year went along last year. You lose Rocket Sanders in the backfield. It looks like they've added some more pass-catching weapons for him. We'll see how that plays out. I love Nick Harbor, the former 5-star recruit. Want to see more in his development. He's got that track speed. And then, of course, defensively, Dylan Stewart coming off the edge, expected to have a monster year. So South Carolina's schedule's tough, but I love seeing them up this high. Shane Beamer deserves a lot of credit for what he did last year and getting this program back on track after missing a bowl game the year prior. And I like South Carolina sitting here at 12. Number 11, you talk about another one that finished the season strong. It's Florida. And again, it was great that they sent out that memo. Hey, Billy Napier saved his job. Hey, Billy Napier's safe and he's coming back. But it only bought you another year. He's still got to have a nice year this year at Florida. The schedule is absolutely brutal once again. If it falls apart and collapses and DJ Lagway gets hurt and all this, it might not go great for Billy Napier. But I like Napier and Florida sitting there at number 11. Sky's the limit for DJ Lagway. But again, that schedule is absolutely brutal. All right, checking in on the rest of the list. Getting into the top 10. We've got Miami at number 10. We've got Oregon at number 9. Here's where we get into some more of the top dog SEC teams. Coming in at number 8 is Alabama. And to me, the big question is, how good is Ty Simpson going to be? That is the root of all this. Ryan Grubb coming in as the offensive coordinator. Most people agree that's a home run hire. Great get. Nick Saban tried to get him when he was still the coach at Alabama, couldn't get him. And he's coached under Kalen DeBoer many times. Now he gets to come join Kalen DeBoer and his staff at Alabama. They got to run the football more consistently. Jan Miller and company got to do their job. But it comes down to Ty Simpson. Look, get the ball in Ryan Williams' hands, let him go down the field and make big plays. He will. Expect the defense going to be strong. Year 2 under Kane Womack. That secondary really, really good. They got some linebacker leadership, Lawson and some of the other guys. So can they get after and get sacks too? That's a big question. We're used to Alabama guys flying around and getting big sack totals. Would like to see that number creep up this year for Alabama. But look, sky's the limit for Alabama. Everybody's expecting playoff or bust. And for Kalen DeBoer, if you go 2 straight years in Tuscaloosa missing the playoff in a 12-team format, they may be trying to run you out of town sooner rather than later. So Alabama coming in at number 8. How about number 7, LSU? High expectations for Brian Kelly in year 4. This is a big year. We talked about it. His 3 previous coaches at LSU, they all won this thing. Nick Saban, Les Miles, Ed Orgeron, and now Brian Kelly. You got to, look, I don't want to put the pressure and say he's going to win a championship this year, but at least make the playoff. And it's a tough schedule. You got to go start on the road at Clemson, who's awesome, but you got to find a way to win that one. Brian Kelly's lost his season opener every year he's been at LSU so far. He's got to start 1-0. But Garrett Nussmeier, 4,000-yard passer, back. All his weapons and pieces they added through the portal, the number 1 portal class. LSU sitting at number 7. Number 6, you got Notre Dame. Into the top 5, we got Clemson. There's LSU's week 1 opponent sitting there at number 5, Clemson. Absolutely loaded. Cade Klubnik back at quarterback. Dabo Swinney and company. Coming in number 4, the Georgia Bulldogs. And look, Georgia's the mainstay. Kirby Smart has earned his earned his keep here, right? Wins back-to-back national championships. And then 2 years ago, they just miss out on the playoff. They were undefeated, lose to Alabama in the SEC title game. They get boosted out of the top 4. I still thought that they were one of the top 4 best teams in the country, deserved to be in that year. But Texas slid in, Alabama slid in, Georgia slid out, and they went and obliterated who was it, FSU in the bowl game, right, when they had like nobody playing in that game. And then last year, Georgia, Carson Beck gets hurt in the SEC championship game. Gunnar Stockton comes in, they win the SEC title game, and then the whole drama with having to play Notre Dame in the playoff. You had the bombing on New Year's, or the guy running the terrorist attack in New Orleans on New Year's. They pushed the game back a day. Talked to a lot of people, said that threw off the kilter, the routine and everything. Not making excuses, just saying there was a lot of disruptions there for Georgia preparing for that Notre Dame game. They lost. Gunnar Stockton played decent enough, but did you make the adjustments necessary? That's going to be the big question for Georgia coming into this year. And does Stockton put on his big boy pants now and say, this is my team? You have Nate Frazier. It should be a good run game. It always is at Georgia, but the Georgia Bulldogs come in number 4, Ohio State number 3, Penn State number 2, and the Texas Longhorns and the legend of Arch Manning coming in at number 1. And of course, we've talked about it all offseason. The expectations rise for a kid like Arch Manning in the big spot and having to wear the pants of the starter now, as Steve Spurrier kind of threw barbs this past week saying, well, if he was so good, why didn't he start ahead of Quinn Ewers last year? It's his time to shine, and it's going to be thrust into it. Week 1, going to Ohio State, having to show what he can do on the road there. But dominant run game back for Texas. It looks like that offensive line has been retooled, led by Trevor Gooseby. And then, of course, the backfield with Trey Wisner back. CJ Baxter comes back from injury, who missed all last year. And then they got weapons in the pass catchers. Ryan Wingo came in with Arch Manning in that recruiting class. Great chemistry together with that guy. So it's going to be fun to see what Texas looks like right out of the gates, having to go on the road at Ohio State. The good news is after that, they get 3 cupcakes at home to kind of get their legs under them, get their confidence going before they go into SEC play. But some tougher SEC games for them this year. They got to go on the road in the Swamp and play Florida and DJ Lagway. They got to go on the road at Georgia this year. So a little bit of, same opponents for Texas in the SEC schedule, but the home and home flips and some tougher road games coming this year in the SEC. So if you agree, disagree with the rankings, that's Athlon Sports, and let us know in the comments on our YouTube page. All right, coming up next here on Locked On SEC, a pleasure to sit down with our buddy Peter Burns from the SEC Network. Always love seeing him at SEC Media Days and all around town. And we will sit down with him and talk a little bit on the SEC offseason. That's coming your way here in just a second. Hey, but first, want to remind you guys, if you have ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family, maybe it's game day, and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands, that is exactly where game time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress on game day. It is the you're going to save money on tickets. You can splurge on food, drinks, merch, whatever it is. Even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it all possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app, they actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. So wherever you are across the SEC states, whether you're down in Tampa, St. Pete, want to go check out the Rays, you want to go see the Marlins, you want to go see the Braves in Atlanta, the Astros out in Houston, whatever it is, Game Time, they have got the tickets for you. They are the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy for you to browse the app for an exciting upcoming Major League Baseball game. Like we said, Braves, Astros, Rangers, wherever you are across the Southeast, you can go check out those games. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, get $20 off your first purchase, and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Run along here, Locked On SEC, and a pleasure to catch up with this guy. We're going to be down in Atlanta in a couple weeks at SEC Media Days, and one of the hardest working guys in the business, Peter Burns of the SEC Network, also hosts SEC This Morning on SiriusXM. Peter, welcome in, man. Thanks for taking some time.
Man, my heart skipped a beat when you said that we'll be in Atlanta in a couple of weeks. Chris. I mean, because I'm like, how in the world did we already get here? Like Omaha just ended and we're already starting to talk about 2025, 26 season. Like it's wild that we're already to this point.
Yeah, it's the seasons go by so quick now, and it's always good to not have too much downtime. But first off, you mentioned it. LSU wins the College World Series, 8th national championship. You got to spend time out in Omaha, 6 straight titles now for the SEC. What was that atmosphere like? And man, does it ever get old being around all that atmosphere, seeing the SEC win 6 straight out there?
Abso-freaking-lutely not, especially when LSU, my favorite team, is there, man. Like there's, I tell people all the time that there are a few bucket list things you have to do in life. Like go to Augusta is one of them. Like Churchill Downs to see the Kentucky Derby and drink a mint julep. That's one. College World Series is one in Omaha, but even more so when LSU is there. And over the course of 30 years since Skip Bertman was leading the Tigers to becoming the most dominant powerhouse in all of college baseball, LSU fans have always traveled really well to Omaha. And so the people of Omaha and the whole state of Nebraska basically adopted them. And so, when you look at that stadium and you see LSU in the finals and it's 85% LSU fans, that's, it gives you goosebumps. Just think about it. And the job that Jay Johnson has done, winning a national championship, twice in the span of 4 years is nothing short of incredible. And Kim Mulkey winning the title, Jake Clark winning gymnastics. You had, LSU win football in 19. Like it's a pretty darn good time to be an LSU Tiger down there.
Yeah, it's wild. A little bit more pressure on Brian Kelly now. Hey, man, we need you to kind of pull your weight a little bit.
He knows it too. I mean, we talked to BK during spring and over down in Destin. He makes no bones about it that he understands that LSU fans are extremely frustrated, and he's frustrated as well too. The way that they started over the last couple seasons. And he knows that that's not going to cut it, especially when Scott Woodward only hires guys and girls that win championships right now. So that pressure, especially in that opener, is real and spectacular.
Yeah, I keep calling it. It's a must win. I mean, can they lose that game and still win the title? Sure, but it just makes it super hard to do that, to say you can only lose one more game the rest of the way. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, certainly a must win.
Yeah, I mean, and I get to the point too, and I'm not sure, I think that because they do play Clemson, and of course, obviously, I think if you win that game, then you might even be able to go 8-3 the rest of the way if you beat Clemson at Clemson, because I think they're going to be pretty good and probably win the ACC to where you can afford at least 2 SEC losses. But you lose that game, especially if you lose it the way like Florida lost to Miami last year, where everybody was so excited about it and they fell flat. BK can't have that happen. And I think there's more of an onus this year with Blake Baker, their defensive coordinator, being there, with Joe Sloan understanding how to call plays once again. And Chris, I'm a firm believer that when they lost Bryce Underwood, and that's the all 5-star, All-American quarterback that was the big recruit that ended up going to Michigan last second, I think that was the best thing to happen to LSU. Because frankly, I think that kicked everybody up into high gear going, all right, like let's spend some money in other places. Let's make this a team rather than just landing the number 1 quarterback. And I feel that sense of urgency coming already from the 225.
Yeah, and the thing to me, Peter, what they did in the portal, it's not that you signed the number 1 portal class, which Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss have been doing, but you sign not just guys who are rotational pieces, but starters, quality starters. And that's the key to me. That's the difference from the portal class a year ago to LSU and this portal class is quality starters versus just depth pieces like they had a year ago.
Yeah, and I think they were still trying to figure it out. I mean, I think when BK first came in, he kind of says, I'm going to do this all of my way. And I think he realized quickly, like LSU, Louisiana, that, just SEC football is different. You need to have your staff in place. I think he's got finally the staff that he wanted. And with that came some turnover on the roster. And so now I think that he's got the roster, at a competitive level. And, the thing I keep getting asked lately is, hey, who do you like in the SEC? And then frankly, I mean, it's so weird that I think the SEC is as wide open as it's been. I mean, I think I can make a strong argument, and we'll talk a lot about that in Atlanta, for 4, if not 5 teams to win it. And it wouldn't surprise me coming up this year. So, I'm excited about it. I will say this though, between the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness, and just no spring games. This is probably about as flying blind into a season as I felt in a long time. I mean, like you and I know, like 7-8 years ago, we knew everybody on the roster. We knew how they developed as a freshman. They're coming in their junior year. This is, the offensive line that Kentucky always wanted, or the wide receiver crew that looks great that Ole Miss has. And now it's kind of like when you play Madden video games, it's like, and you generate a random roster. That's kind of what it feels like right now. I mean, you got the Garrett Nussmeiers, you got, the Arch Mannings of the world that you know who they are, but man, it's weird timing to say the least.
Well, that's why we had so much fun with you playing that game at Media Days last year, testing your knowledge in the transfer board. Most fans don't know who is the where. Like, you're going to be buying a program week one going, oh, we have this guy. Oh, that guy from Kentucky's here. Like, it's wild to keep up with.
Well, and the thing that's different is it used to be, okay, the transfer portal's there, and then you see them all throughout spring practice. You understand the depth chart. There's a lot of reports about what's happening in practice. You watch the spring game, and you can say, all right, I know what's going on. Now it's state secrets because nobody wants to put out a depth chart. Nobody wants to play a spring game. Nobody wants to tell you who's playing good because then that person might get plucked out of the transfer portal, or who's playing bad because then that person might get offended and say, well, coach doesn't think I'm very good, or I need to develop, so somebody else, I'll go play for somebody else. So what the coaches have done basically is says, we're not saying anything about our team, nothing. And that's unfortunate for guys like you and me. And it's unfortunate for fans that want to know more about their team, because now we're just, supposed to show up in August and think, all right, what do you got for us? As opposed to kind of like riding along with their team the entire time. So it's a learning curve. I mean, college football and college athletics continues to adapt, and we're just trying to stay afloat.
Yeah, it was like in the spring, it was like, Coach, can you talk about Derek? Yeah, all our guys are doing a great job. It was just like, make it as generic as you can, pull it out. We are just a couple weeks away from SEC Media Days. I'm curious, in your mind, what is going to be the biggest storyline going in? Because I mean, we got everything, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think the storylines are going to be, I think the storylines are going to be the quarterbacks that we have coming back, right? I think that's always kind of one of the ones of, hey, all right, are we going to see, Garrett Nussmeier take that next step? What's Arch Manning going to look like? John Mateer over at Oklahoma, is that going to be one of those guys? What's Jackson Arnold going to do going from Oklahoma to Auburn right now? Austin Simmons taking over for everybody over at Ole Miss right now. So I think quarterback play is going to dominate that. And I think the big picture stuff too is, what guys that are kind of feet against the fire can really take the next step. And, Arkansas being one of those teams. Sam Pittman is fully aware. I think there were some people that were surprised that he was back in Fayetteville. That didn't surprise me, because nobody really wants to go pay a bunch of Jimbo Fisher buyout money right now, because now you're going to have to pay the athletes with a $20 million house settlement. I want to see how he bounces back. I want to see what's going on with Mark Stoops in Kentucky, the tenured coach of the SEC, Chris. And now, hey, they've whiffed on a couple of players in the transfer portal at quarterback, and it's hurt them. How about Auburn and Hugh Freeze? I really thought Auburn and Hugh Freeze was an interesting match, because I thought in the transfer portal, everybody would want to play in that offense. But, he was kind of stubborn and decided, hey, I'm going to make Peyton Thorne my guy. And that just wasn't the right fit. And so now there's a lot of pressure on him. And especially when he had his comments earlier this year that says, well, I know we got to make a bowl game. That's shocking. Shocking to me that Hugh would say that. And I think probably maybe the biggest question I have is not necessarily about Brian Kelly and Clemson and that game right off the bat, but Nick Saban no longer being there, 2 years removed. This is now more of Kalen DeBoer's team. And what does that look like? Because 9-4 was, it wasn't good. And in Alabama, they're not expected to see back-to-back seasons where they lose 2 games, much less 4. So, and he's got more pressure on him than any other coach in the SEC in the opener. Not Sark versus Ohio State, not Brian Kelly versus Clemson. Number one pressure clearly is Kalen DeBoer against FSU, because that's a team that you should be better than. You're probably going to be a double-digit favorite. You cannot afford to lose that game right from the jump.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Thomas Castellanos had to go and poke the bear. And
that's the best thing to happen. The best thing to happen to Alabama. And for those who don't know, that was the BC quarterback who's now at FSU that has, poked the bear by saying, hey, Nick Saban's no longer there to stop me. Well, I mean, I saw him get benched against Missouri last year. So let's slow it down a little bit, big man.
Last thing for you, Peter, you talk about the quarterback crop, and it's interesting. Brandon Marcello does a great job. I heard him a few weeks ago have the take that he didn't think this crop of quarterbacks was very good. The more I look about it, I mean, you got the provens in the Nussmeiers, John Mateer, and Lenore Sellers, but dude, the up and comers from Arch Manning to DJ Lagway, I think quarterback is going to be a strength this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think now what you do is now that the guys know how to work the transfer portal enough, they're like, all right, we don't have to take a guess on a quarterback. We've seen this guy enough, and we know he fits what we do. So I think the teams are getting smarter at that. So like Marcel Reed, it's going to be interesting to see how he plays over at Texas A&M. I mean, does he develop as more of a passer? He was dangerous. I remember when he just crushed LSU and really, kind of ended LSU's season after Nussmeier threw a bad interception. They took the ball down there, and LSU couldn't stop a nosebleed in that game. So, yeah, and I mean, what's the Alabama quarterback situation going to look like? I don't think it's, hey, there's 4 different Heisman Trophy guys that are there. But at the same time, I didn't think that about Jaden Daniels when he had his season. I damn sure didn't think about Joe Burrow going into 19, and he had that season. And so this is probably as unexpected or kind of as a blank slate for so many teams this year. And by the way, we forget about Diego Pavia. Pavia was fun to watch over at Vanderbilt. Can't wait to see what he's going to bring. And I'm sure he's going to – I mean, he knows this is his last year playing football. So at media days, he's just going to just say whatever the hell he wants. And good. Let him do that. So, I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's got life or death. There are a lot of heavy things in their life, man. I mean, it's fun to have – it's okay to have fun playing football and watching football and talking about it as well.
On the way out, PB, what's the most fun thing you did this offseason?
Well, I technically was off to watch LSU play in Omaha, so my liver is still and my bank account is still recuperating from that. So, play a little golf. I'm going to spend a couple of days over in Europe, and it's always an interesting reset to go over there. Because every single day, you and I are talking to people like off the ledge about what's the wide receiver room going to look like for LSU, and are they good? And then you get in Germany or Paris, and they're like, what's football? Right. And it's kind of like, okay, it's a good like check to be like, we're going to make everything okay. Like it's not everything is life or death over there. So
yeah, no doubt. No, we typically do a Europe trip every off season. We didn't do one this year, but yeah, we're it's always fun to get over there. Yeah, and they have no idea. I mean, I remember seeing they had Notre Dame stuff because Notre Dame was getting ready. They're going to do their
Ireland, yeah. Yeah, well, I've been wanting Brian Kelly, who's got that background, at Notre Dame and stuff. I'm like, dude, BK, we got it. Like, when are we going to do one? And so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but they're still working out all the kinks about everything else in the sport, to say the least.
Yeah. SEC Now live from Dublin, and we will bring the Jello Shot Challenge over there. I think that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we'll drink them out of Guinness if that's going to be the case. So it'll be
Jello shots. What are these? PB, always appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks, bud.
All right, more coming up right after this. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thanks to Peter Burns for joining us. Thank you for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. And hey, for your second listen, you check out the Portal Show with Brian Smith. He's got all the latest rumors, portal entries, and standings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes of the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Chris Gordy. We'll talk to you guys next week right here on Locked On SEC.